Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Gold Zone, a game on Wisconsin. My name is MJ Hurley, joined here with Jacob Marley, and as always, a pleasure to have Mike Kawanu on a game on Wisconsin show. It's been a while, Mike, but happy to have you here. Jake, this is normally you and Jacob's show, so I'm gonna lead with how you doing and what are we doing this evening?
Man, I'm doing good. I just got back from the Summit League basketball tournament like 3 hours ago. Went and had track practice at my school, and now I'm here doing this. So I've just been running around all day, but I'm super excited to be here talking ball with you guys. Jacob is under the weather, and he didn't have his Michael Jordan flu game in him tonight, so we got Scottie Pippins over here and Dennis Rodman to fill in. But we're going to be talking about the QB tonight. I think there's some news to discuss with him, as per usual. And then we're talking tight ends. Tight ends. I asked Mike pre-show. I said, Mike, you got any takes on the tight ends? And he said, we need one. So, Mike, how are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, MJ, let's start with let's just get. I did promise the good people of the Twitterverse that we were not going to talk too much about Aaron Rodgers, but there is things that need to be discussed. And before we do that, oh, what's up, Lambo? And before we do that, though, I mentioned I was at the Summit League basketball tournament, and I was with Ross Uglum, friend of the show, who does Bison Report. So I was there with him. And so I was there with him when all this Aaron Rodgers news broke. And I got to tell you what, I envy him a little bit because his take on this the entire time, and he did fire off a tweet that just said something like, wow, I hate to say it, but I was right the entire time. And he was right because I think the correct take with QB1 is if it doesn't come directly from his mouth in terms like in the regard of am I coming back, what kind of contract do I want, all that stuff, if it's not coming from 12, I think there's like reasonable doubt to actually question what the heck is going on. And all we have confirmed right now is he said yes, he's going to be a Packer next year, which should be enough for us to be, that's exciting news. It really is, because I think all of us have kind of gone through well, just make up your mind or leave, right? And I know I was there. I know going back to the end of the season, that loss hurt. That really did. And I think a lot of us were just kind of like, whatever, let's go. And I think rip the Band-Aid off has been the commonly used phrase. But as it kind of progressed and as kind of things rolled along, I think a lot of us kind of came to the point where we're like, you know what? Rodgers is the back-to-back MVP. He gives this team the best chance to win a Super Bowl for the foreseeable future. Why wouldn't they run it back with him? And they made all those decisions. They basically did everything in their power to make it, to make the bed for Aaron Rodgers, so to speak. And they're gonna sleep in it. They're gonna have to. And that's just kind of where we're at right now with him. But I am going to adopt the policy that Ross Uglum kind of taught me this weekend, and I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for what Rodgers says. All this contract stuff that's going around, and we'll speculate about it tonight, like no doubt about it. But I'm not going to make any hard and fast predictions because I really just don't know. I don't know what he's going to want to do. I'm not going to dog him for the reports for saying that he wanted around $50 million a year, because it seems like that's not true, but it could be. I really don't know. I'm waiting to see what 12 says, but I think that's a good place to start. And MJ, what was your initial reaction? One, and I think that's a fun exercise too. So, and I want to ask both you guys this: when you first saw that news breaking from Pat McAfee, what was your initial reaction, MJ?
Well, my initial reaction was thank God it came from Pat McAfee, because what I didn't want to happen was Schefter or Rappaport to be the first ones to tweet it, because they've been, questionable when it comes to Aaron Rodgers news in recent months. So I'm very happy it came from Pat McAfee, and I think that's the best place it could have come from. So that was my initial reaction. My other initial reaction was I knew it was going to happen. I knew Rodgers was coming back. So it's pretty much
MJ, I'm going to stop you right there. Because you're giving me the reporter answer. You're giving me the answer that you should be giving me. But I'm asking you, raw emotion, happy or sad? How did you feel? Did your heart flutter in joy, or did your stomach sink in despair? How do you feel?
So I went through a few phases. My initial fan reaction was, dang it, I would have traded him. And that's the Jacob Westendorf coming out in me. Yeah. And I still get a lot of crap for that. But I will say my heart did flutter when I saw the picture Jen posted yesterday of Rodgers and Devontae in the end zone. My heart did flutter a little bit when I saw that one. I will be honest. I still would have traded him. And I'm just done with all the BS. I really don't want to have to deal with this every single offseason. And I really don't want to have to deal with this, throughout the year. I don't want this to be a question to my franchise quarterback. Do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? Pretty please? Can you come back? Yeah. What do you want? What do you need? I don't want to have to deal with it anymore. Am I going to root for him the entire season and talk smack about how he's the best quarterback ever? Absolutely. But you're right. I initially was like, dang it, there's still a part of me that wanted him gone.
Mike, how did you feel, man?
Yeah. I think my overly emotional response was, all right, cool.
All right.
All right.
No, kind of the same place where MJ is coming from, because, I mean, like you said, Jake, I ran the gauntlet of emotions, at the end of that game. Even late in that game, I was just like, oh, great. It's going to be another one of those. They're either going to, whimper to the end in a sad victory, or they're going to lose a stupid game kind of thing. And they lost a stupid game and stuff. And it's like, people were saying, both sides were, I definitely was on the pitchforks of he choked again and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, the reason I came from that angle is you're playing a quarterback where your hurdle mark that you had to clear was just not be trying to throw the game away like your opponent was. Literally, Garoppolo tried to throw pick sixes multiple times in that game, and you couldn't overcome that hurdle. And so, yeah, I know it's same thing like MJ saying. I think all three of us are of the age where we lived through the Favre seesawing and stuff like that. So I think that's where our attitude kind of comes from, where it's like, okay, sure, cool, and like MJ said, I do get irritated with the whole thing. Oh, you're going to bag on him, but you're going to cheer for him through the year? Yeah, he's the quarterback of my team. What am I supposed to do? It's not even with all of, as much as I hated how he handled, his COVID situation and stuff like that, it's, there's a lot worse things you could do in this sport. And, after even that one, I definitely had a quick Twitch reaction to that. And, the main thing I was like, okay, his teammates knew, the team knew, and the league knew. So, okay, yeah, we didn't know, and, spilled milk and all that kind of stuff. But even that, it's like, I don't agree with him, but he's still the quarterback of my team. But yeah, it does get tiring having to deal with the whole, oh, you owe me this, you owe me that, what are you going to do for me and stuff. And it's like, can you just go win a game that matters again? And I know that sounds really harsh from a fan's point of view, but at the same time, it's like,
but that's what we're here for.
The market at the quarterback position. Yeah. Yes, they haven't drafted a lot of offensive weapons early, but it's because they're trying to fix this defense so that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders anymore. And lo and behold, that defense did play really damn good against an opponent, and you wet the bed in your efforts. So it's like, what do you want from us?
It is hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious. It sucks. It hurts my heart. But it's like, really, the one time that the defense comes in and plays lights out, we can't score 14 points. I mean, we don't need to rehash the entire game. It sucks and it's painful. But I think as a fan, ultimately we want to be entertained, right? That's part of the deal. And it sucks that as Packers fans that we've been very entertained for a long time, and we are typically very entertained throughout the course of a season, and then it comes crashing down on our heads. It seems like that's just kind of like the traditional thing that happens to us. But I think a lot of us, as soon as Rodgers throws 5 touchdowns in a game, we're gonna be like, "All right, that's my
man.
dude. Let's go." I mean, I'll be that way. I mean, because I think you have to separate the human side of it from the football side of it, and I think at the core of it, Aaron Rodgers is a good person. I do believe that. I think he has some like weird things about him, but it doesn't really matter to me. Like, and I think that's something we all kind of learned as fans this year is like, all right, we put these guys on pedestals. We don't really need to. We don't really need to put these guys on pedestals. Like, as long like Aaron Rodgers is not out there like actively like getting into fights and like physically hurting people. So he did some pretty messed up. I mean, we don't need to get into that. And I'm going down that road, so I'm going to stop myself right now. But he's back. He's the quarterback for the foreseeable future. We're going to find out about the contract. I heard on the McAfee show today, and I do side with McAfee as far as like sourcing goes, because McAfee's sources are Aaron Rodgers. Like, I believe Aaron is just texting him this stuff. Like, it's not a 4-year deal. It's not that much money. It's not this and that. What's interesting is Rappaport got that information from someone, right? Like someone gave him that information, and that someone is probably someone in 1265 Lombardi. So that's where it gets weird is, did Green Bay think they had that deal on the table? And then Rodgers is like, I actually haven't agreed to that yet. I am coming back, but that's not the deal. I want, and then they talked about how McAfee said, basically being a mouthpiece for Aaron, I want to take less so we can bring my guys back and go on a run. And I think that's kind of what we're expecting now from him and from this team. It seems like they're setting themselves up in that way that if Rodgers is going to be getting $50 million a year, like that's ain't going to happen. Like that's going to be like the doomsday scenario where it's like, cool, you have Aaron and Devontae, and that's it. Like, good luck, know? So that is what's interesting to me. But I promised we weren't going to talk about Rodgers, and we've talked about him for almost 15 minutes. So let's move on to the tight ends, fellas. The tight ends. Let's get my man, my quarterback, QB1, best quarterback on the planet. Let's get him some more weapons. Let's talk about the tight end position, because Aaron Rodgers has traditionally not really had great tight end play in his time in Green Bay. I still think it's pretty safe to say that Jermichael Finley has been the best tight end he's had in his time. And you look back to the 2010 season, the only year they won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, and he had just bursting at the seams with weapons. They haven't really gone that route since the early 2010s. And I'm kind of at the point where it's like, #score 100, man. Who cares about defense? Just give my man some weapons and let's just outscore people. So let's talk about the tight end position, and let's kind of lay it out here for Packers fans. Like how do the Packers use their tight ends? They have two kind of types, right? They have like your traditional Y tight end, which will be a guy that's going to play with his hand in the dirt. He's going to be expected to block. He's going to be expected to run some routes, but they've never really had someone that can do both, right? Like even Big Bob Tonyan is not really your traditional wide tight end. He's a guy that can block. They can stick him in and he'll chip a little bit, but he is not like a big dog type guy that will just bury people in the dirt. And they've never had someone that can do both. And Mike, I know you're a big X's and O's guy. And so talk to me a little bit about like what's the benefit of having like a really good wide tight end that maybe he's not great in the passing game, but he's adequate, but can block, and you don't need to take him off the field. Like what do you think would be the benefit for like a Matt LaFleur type offense to have a guy like that?
Honestly, I mean, just pop on the tape of Big Dog and that's your answer kind of thing. Obviously asking for a player who's going to come in and do that is just, astronomically unbelievable. But just to have a guy who can really be relied on like an extra lineman out there, that's something that's just a luxury that no one else in the league has at this point. And having that extra ability, it gives you box advantages in the run game. It forces defenses to make decisions in terms of because a lot of teams in the league right now, they're treating tight ends as another wide receiver, so they're playing a lot of sub package defense against it. So you get into like 11 personnel. Yeah, you're 11. A lot of defenses are playing nickel at the least, or sometimes they're even getting into dime against it, just to match up in the passing game. So, um, like you said, we're not asking any why that we draft to be Mercedes. That would be just insane, and asking way too much out of a rookie. But to just be someone who can be a reliable cut blocker on the backside of plays, or just be, know how to read a defense, make decisions on the move in the run game, especially because your front side on the zone stretch plays that they like to run, you're asked to hook a lot of edge players, help your running back get to the perimeter, or if you're on backside, you're doing that. You're either walling off the backside, or like they used Sternberger and Tunyon a lot to come on that wham block to the backside on their inside zone plays. You just asking, that's the main thing that even in terms of looking at college players these days, because none of them are very good blockers. There's like one out of every draft class that's actually worth it, and the rest of them who can block, you're like, he can't run, like he can't get open downfield at all. So it's like you just want effort, and you're hoping that they have certain, whether it's physical or athletic check mark, landmarks they can hit, that you're saying like, okay, that guy's going to give me effort. I can coach up his technique and, coach up, hopefully get him on the whiteboard, and he can read a defense a little better and stuff, and can get him, get him up to snuff in terms of being able to see like, okay, I've got the mic. I have to go root him out. Let me go find him after the snap kind of thing. And that's really all you're looking for out of a young player. And if they develop into anything close to Mercedes, that's great. But yeah, like having that ability on your offense, it just makes night and day, because you're able to be so much more multiple. And then on top of that, like I said, a lot of times it's hard to find guys who can do both. Gronk was probably the last one who was truly a two-way tight end in terms of being able to move people in the run game and being such a deadly threat in the passing game. So honestly, more of your Y guys, you're looking at guys who are more like Mercedes. They're running like a 4.8 in the 40.
Yep.
The ironic thing is that like Jermichael, he didn't run very good at the combine. He ran like a 4.82 or something like that. But he was definitely one of those like, well, he's faster when he plays kind of guys.
Yeah.
And
he was he's like an RAS guy. I don't know what his RAS, exactly. But I would guess that it was actually pretty good. Where you look at his 40, you're like, oh, he's not a good athlete, but then like everything else was really good.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's all about traits, but in terms of scouting for the position, but yeah, you want that versatility, and you just see how much more they're able to do on offense, especially when they're under center. That's the thing too, where it's a little hard to gauge it off of this past year's offense in terms of what having that extra tight end does. It's really when you look back at their 2020 offense, when Bach was in the game, when Bakhtiari was playing, and you see all that they did from under center with all of the just all of the bootlegs and all that kind of stuff. And then they were switching up their run game a lot. They weren't just running solely zone. They were running a lot of dual, which is basically zone with some man concepts for like the super layman terms on it and stuff. You're getting a couple double teams and trying to get movement to the second level. So they can mix it up, and if you have that extra blocker, it opens up you to freedom, because either you're sending an extra lineman downfield, or you're using that tight end to do lineman things on the second level, which just makes your run game that more dangerous and forces defenses to apply more resources to stopping the run, because that's really all it is in the game now. It's so specialized. All you're trying to do is force the defense to play the way you want them to. You don't. That's really what dominant teams do these days. Like Kansas City, for example, their whole game is like, put speed on the field, and we're going to see if you can match up with our speed, and we'll do things to counter off of it. And for Green Bay, I think what LaFleur is trying to do is like, it's like you said, it's the illusion of complexity. But it's like, we're going to build off of this under center run game, and we're going to make you have to line up a certain way, and then we're just going to counter off of whatever you throw at us. And having a tight end who can block, that just adds so much more diversity to what his play calling can be.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize too, with as far as like the projection from the college game to the NFL game, the hash marks are different, right? And like when you're a tight end, the wide side of the field is a lot wider in the NFL. So like some of these guys are so hard to project when they come into the league because they're being asked to do things that they have never been asked to do before in the college game. And tight end, I believe, is one of the hardest things to project to the NFL level. And what I'm kind of at the point of with what I do is just gamble on traits. Take an athletic freak on day 3 every year and just hope one hits eventually, because they're like a 3-year project anyways. Like they take a while to get into that role. But I do want to talk about some guys that Lambeau Label just talked about, the toolsiest guy in this draft with Jelani Woods, who is a huge, big freak athlete. Like that is your day 3 freak athlete. I don't know if he will ever be a blocker in the NFL, but the comp for Jelani Woods for me is Jimmy Graham, just because one, he's a big freakish athlete, played a different position, which Jimmy Graham played basketball. Jelani Woods was a quarterback. Struggles with drops a little bit, but he's just a big, freaky athlete. So I really like him. I think he's a great pick, but would be a great pick for this team. But as far as like wide tight ends, guys that you want to come in and say like, hey, can you be and step into the role that Big Dog kind of does right now? My number one guy for like as far as blocking in this year's draft class is Cade Otton out of Washington. And if you check out the Green Bay draft guide, which is on the thing below, if you have not bought that already, you need to. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a taste and like a little teaser of what you will get in that Green Bay draft guide. So how Cade Otton would fit with the Packers. I'm just reading this straight out of the guide. It says Cade Otton shares a lot of similarities with Mercedes Lewis and in time could eventually develop into his role. Sadly, Big Dog cannot play forever. He is violent with his hands and he is violent as a blocker. He is never going to be the threat in the passing game that fans would like to get excited about, but he would add a great value to the Packers' outside zone scheme. And looking down the road, would be a reliable target for a potential young quarterback. So I'm talking down the road beyond Aaron Rodgers. But Cade Otton is that type of guy where it's like, man, he could eventually develop into like that third tackle type thing. And like it says right here, he's never going to be a guy that you watch, and he's never going to be Travis Kelce, right? He's never going to be a guy catching 80 passes, 1,000 yards, but he at least can be a threat in the passing game. And I think that's all you're looking for with some of these wide tight ends is someone that can block, but also you can leave them on the field all 3 downs, because you know what, if you do not, allocate some resource to him as far as a defender or someone that can cover, he'll bust you for 12 yards, 20 yards, whatever it is. And that's something Big Dog doesn't really do as much right now. Jake Ferguson is absolutely another one of those types. Lambeau Label, he is a guy that I comp to actually Tom Crabtree because I think he's going to be that type of guy in the NFL where he's going to do 1,000 different things for a team. And a lot of them are not going to include moving the ball. But he's a nice football player. Do you guys have anyone that just screams, this is a Green Bay Packer tight end, kind of in the regards of what we've been talking about here?
Well,
MJ, yeah, I was gonna say, MJ, I haven't heard from you in a while, man. Let's hear some thoughts.
First of all, Jermichael Finley's RAS score was 6.39. So if he were to be in the current draft class, Green Bay would not select him. We'll just start there.
They haven't, but I will say, MJ, they have not cared as much about RAS for tight ends, which is, I think they're wrong. I think they're wrong for that. But who are you going to mention?
So I have a running game type guy, and then I have somebody that I think is a little bit mischaracterized. So first, I'm going to go with Lucas Krull from Pittsburgh. He, in his bowl performances at the Peach Bowl, and then he just really impressed me in the run game. He is a very similar size to Cade Otton that you were talking about. He's 6'5", 260. He played 5 years at Pitt. And I just think that he provides a lot of the power. Again, like you said, Jake, he's not going to be somebody who's going to bust you in the passing game, but he caught enough passes and showed enough in the passing game, about 35 balls last year that I think he could at least, like you said, do a little bit in the passing game. He's not a complete liability on that end. The person that I do think is a little bit mischaracterized is Jeremy Ruckert. Big name out of Ohio State. I mean, he had some very impressive catches throughout his time, even in the last season. One of the more impressive catches I've seen in college football against Wisconsin last year. So I apologize for that, Packers fans. But it was funny. I was doing a little bit of digging into him before the show, and he actually, coming into college, Ohio State had him as a wide receiver because they didn't think he was big enough and strong enough to be a pass blocker and actually play tight end. And now there are a lot of people who are saying he might not be the receiver type. So I think he's somebody who, at his core, has experience both as a tight end and a wide receiver. I think he could develop more into the traditional why Mike was talking about earlier and actually do all the things involved. It's a little bit of a reach, possibly, but he does 6'5", 250 also fit the type that you were talking about, at least athletically and build-wise, where he does have the receiving experience and he does have the build to be a blocking tight end.
Yeah, he's a guy too that, like, I think if you want to talk about if anyone has a chance in this year's draft class to kind of be a do-it-all guy, to be able to be that receiver, to be that blocker, I think it's Jeremy Rucker, because I think he has the potential to be all that stuff. He was in high school. He was the New York High School Football Player of the Year, 4-star recruit. Coming out of there, going to Ohio State. So he is no slouch when it comes to that stuff. Also, 4-time academic, all Big Ten. So he's a smart dude.
That's impressive.
Mike, who do you have your eye on for this year's draft class? Talking kind of about that wide type tight end.
Yeah, you guys named a couple good ones. Rucker definitely has been rising up the boards for me recently. Guy who kind of is flying under the radar right now is Jalen. I think his last name is pronounced Weirmeyer from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He's kind of in the Bubba Franks mold, where he's more of a Y, but he's got he's got some athleticism for his size, and can attack the seam on post routes and stuff like that. So gives you a little more than just blocking. A little bit still raw and underutilized at the position, but someone they can kind of develop. And then if we're looking for someone that's more of a Tunyon kind of athletic seam tight end, there's Greg Dulcich, I think his name is, from UCLA.
Yep.
He's more, I think he was kind of like MJ was saying about Rucker, where I think he was a high school tall wide receiver who they kind of just kept adding weight onto as he was going through his years at UCLA. But he had some plays where he's got some pretty decent wheels on him after the catch. Not too much in terms of trying to break or juke tackles, but he's got some scoot to his game and stuff. I think he outran some of LSU's DBs in their early season matchup this year and stuff. So just a couple of guys to keep eyes on. But yeah, it's always hard to tell with tight end because like you said, Jake, they take so long to develop, and it's hard. And so kind of to go back to what you were saying earlier about the hash marks, just to give people who don't know exactly where the hash marks are. So if you look at an NFL field, the hash marks, they're on the goalpost. If you were to draw a string line, they're from the goalpost down to the field. The college ones, they're basically, if you split the difference between that NFL hash mark and out to the top of the numbers. So, they're 10 to 15 yards wider out on the field. And like you said, that creates a lot more space, and that's why you don't see guys block anymore in college, just because boxes are light, defenders are smaller and stuff like that. So it is, like they say, the draft is an art, not a science necessarily, and it is a lot of projection. So more than anything, I just want to see them get a couple bodies out of this draft, whether it's 2 picks or if it's a pick in the free agent or something like that. They just got to try and get some more bodies in that room, because as much as I like Daphne, as much as I think DeGuara has some future to him, and as much as I'd like to see Tunyon have a bounce back, they've got to have more answers in that room, especially because, and that's the thing, is that I know Rodgers isn't the biggest tight end guy, because where do they make a lot of their work? middle of the field, and he doesn't throw to the middle of the field that often. And I still haven't quit my job, Jacob. But but yeah, it's one of those where, whoever they bring in, no matter how high they're drafted, it's going to take them a year to get used to it. They might, if this team gets to the playoffs, they might contribute in the playoffs. Kind of like Kenny Clark did his rookie year. Everyone was like, when is Kenny Clark going to do anything? When is Kenny Clark going to do anything? They should have picked one of these other 5 people. But Kenny Clark's not doing. What does he do? He goes out in the playoffs and he tackles Zeke Elliott for like a minus 10-yard loss on his first play of the divisional round and stuff. So, it's one of those. It's a position that it takes time to develop, and that's why you don't see him drafted high in the draft a lot. Other than there's a Kyle Pitts every once in a while, but those are unicorn players more than anything else. Receiver. So yeah. So and I think Pitts was like the first 1,000-yard receiving tight end as a rookie since.
Well, it's because he's a receiver. He's a receiver, and a really good one. And they don't regret taking him. But I love that you mentioned you wanted them to take a couple bodies at the tight end position because they roster a couple different body types. And the first one we talked about is like that wide tight end, like your traditional big blocker that can, maybe get up the seam, hopefully. But the other type that they have rostered in the past, and, we're talking about the DeGuaras, the Daphnes, the Lovetts, even like Tyler Davis a little bit, or is that his name? The Georgia Tech kid that they had. Yeah. But that F type, more of like the H-back, kind of like and some people even would call him a fullback, like just the more versatile guy. But someone in this year's draft class that I've fallen in love with is his name is Chigoziem Okonkwo from Maryland. And I watched his film, I think 2 days before the combine. And I remember I had buddies that were at the East-West Shrine game where he was at. And I remember Eric Galco talking about, who runs the Shrine game, saying, hey, this Okonkwo guy, you got to keep an eye on him. Like, I think he's going to go higher than what people expect him to go. And I see it. Like, you watch him on tape, and I think in my write-up for him in the draft guide, I said, like, they used him in a variety of ways, and I'm almost annoyed that they didn't hand the ball off to him because he's that type of athlete with the ball in his hands. Now, he is not the type of guy that, like, is going out and, like, chopping people up in like, his route tree. But he is the type of guy that in this offense, in Matt LaFleur's offense, could be someone that is explosive with the ball in his hand, that you can run him on those crossing routes, or you can just run him in the flat. And he offers a skill set that they don't really have on the roster right now. Like, I think DeGuara is a nice player. He does look like Vernon, especially with, that Maryland stuff, because he is a rocked up dude too. Like, he is well put together. But he's only 6'2". Delaney Walker is who I immediately think of when I think of him, who played fullback for the Niners and then kind of transitioned into like that tight end role. But and Delaney Walker is someone that Matt LaFleur's coached. So I would love him in this offense to be the type of guy, like I was saying, like DeGuara is a guy you see it a little bit like on the screen that, Love hit him on and he was able to take it to the house. But Okonkwo is a guy that could do that more consistently, and I think with time could be a devastating blocker as well, just because he plays with that type of mentality. And he's a freak athlete, just an absolute freak athlete. He might go like I've heard, he might go higher than what people expect, and all of a sudden he's off the board at pick 80, and you go, well, who the heck is this guy? But then he might be a guy that his name pretty well in a few years down the road in NFL circles. So that is someone that I would like to see the Packers add. And people have gotten on because I put him in a couple of mocks now, and people will be like, well, they already have Daphne and DeGuara. It's like, yeah, I think they like DeGuara, but like if they're going to roster 2 guys, wouldn't you want to upgrade over Daphne? I mean, Daphne's a fine player, but like he still gets reps. He still gets on the field, even when DeGuara is there. So they're looking to upgrade at all those spots. And oh, by the way, Chig Okonkwo is going to be an absolute star on special teams. And If you told me
Somebody
if
say
the
special
Packers
teams?
if the Packers come out and take someone in the second round and they're like, hey, you know what? We think he's going to be our best special teams player. Packers fans should not question it. Okay, cool.
Done.
I hope he is. If that's all he ever does and he's awesome at it, cool. So he's a guy that I think would be able to add just a variety of things to this offense, kind of in that F tight end role. Lambeau Lay would talk about Charlie Kolar. I do. So Kolar, I like him, but he's got a teammate named Chase Allen, who and I think I've already said it on a podcast already, but like Chase Allen from Iowa State, if you have not watched him, he is impossible not to like when you're watching Kolar, because I kept watching Kolar and my eyes kept going to number 11, who is Chase Allen. And I kept wondering to myself, who's that guy? That guy seems like the best tight end on this team. And then he comes out. He has the second best 3-cone at the combine. He's got a very good RAS score. So he's a good athlete. And I'm not saying like he's going to get drafted ahead of Kolar or anything like that. But he's a guy that I think is going to get drafted on day 3 and have a really good career in the NFL. So I'm glad you brought that Iowa State up, because I want to put my stamp on Chase Allen. He's my dude. But guys, who else? I'm sorry, I'm hogging the mic now. Who else do you fellas like in this tight end class at all? Because we're getting kind of close to time anyways.
I really like Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina. He had the best vert for any tight end in the draft. If you're talking about a freak athlete, he is one of those guys. He was also, just a side note, if we're really looking to please 12, highest graded tight end, according to PFF, for tight ends in college football in the red zone last year. So, you want a jump ball guy. Obviously, you're going to 17 a lot of the time in the red zone. But if you want somebody on the other side who can, like Mike said, create a lot of distraction, which the Packers like, and really up that complexity, Likely very well may be that guy. Again, much more of a H-back pass catcher type, not necessarily going to put his hand in the ground and do a lot of blocking, but he at least has the build where he could. He measured in at 6'4", 245. So he measured in higher than he was listed ever in college at Coastal Carolina, both in height and weight. So he's got a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, and that's somebody I think, may cost a higher pick because he has been rising up draft boards a lot, especially after his performance at the combine. But he is definitely somebody that if you want another pass catcher, he's a guy I would go with.
And I'll give the West Coast some love. Daniel Bellinger from San Diego State, one of those names that might start to climb the boards a little bit because he did test pretty well at the combine. I think he ended up with like a 9.4 RAS or something like that. So one of those relatively smaller schools, but gives good effort. Like I said, gives good effort in the run game, and he has some scoot in the passing game. So those are the kind of guys that you kind of see as those mid-round kind of day 3 picks. Kind of trying to find a ball of clay that you can mold into something in the pros and stuff. So that's the kind of body type that I think they're looking for. And we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Like I said, I think they've got to come out of this draft with like 3 pass catchers, however you split it amongst tight end, wide receiver. But I would like to see a couple of tight ends just to, like Jake said, you want to. As much as they may like DeGuara and Daphne, you want to keep churning the position, and you're going to have to find that answer to who is going to take over for Mercedes. Because as much as he's been awesome the last few years, especially in this LaFleur system, but he can't play forever, and they're going to need to find an answer at that Y position to keep LaFleur's offense humming like it does when it's operating at all cylinders. So Bellinger isn't necessarily that guy, but he could be something close to that guy and give you a little more in the passing game. So more of a Y type tight end than the Likely and I'm not even going to try to say a close name, them being more H-back types. So just like you said, Jake, there's all different types of tight ends. So they're gonna come out and they might say that they have two. You're gonna kind of look at 162 and 165, and you're like, oh, they play the same position. In name, yes, but in technicality, not really.
Yeah.
Mike, if you want the comparison for Bellinger in RAS, it's Travis Kelce is the most similar tight end RAS score.
Book it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to draft me Travis Kelce, I'm not going to complain.
I'd be okay with that. But Labo, yes, the ginger, back to Chase Allen, the long, majestic hair kid with ginger hair. Yes, that is Chase Allen. And he did.
Yep.
He has got an 8.7 RAS, so he's a freaky athlete.
I'm glad you brought him up, Jake, because it's not the same because obviously Fant and Hawk are really, really good, but it was kind of like that where you're watching Kohler, like kind of like you would be watching Fant, and then you're like, oh, this other dude is kind of better than him in some ways and stuff, and flowing locks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Allen is kind of fun to watch. Not kind of fun. He is fun to watch play, and he does bring more of that that kind of a dirt devil attitude to the field and stuff. He's not as polished as Kohler is as a route runner or in the passing game.
He's a wild
does
man
all
too.
the other work that Kohler doesn't do, kind of thing at the position. And you'd like to see that out of those kind of prospects.
Yep. All right, boys. Well, if we don't have anything else, MJ, get us out of here, man.
Well, Jake, Mike, it has been a pleasure as always. I know we're not Jacob Westendorf. We cannot bring the energy, the absolute stunning good looks or the charm that he can. But it's been a pleasure to host the Gold Zone with you, gentlemen. Thank you, as always, to everybody commenting, watching, listening. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Game On Wisconsin. Make sure to go download and buy that draft guide. Jake and Jacob put a lot of hard work into that.
We got breaking news. True North Packers fan ordered a copy of his Game On Wisconsin draft guide.
That is what we love to see.
What a guy.
Absolutely.
You will not be disappointed. You're going to love it. You're going to read it every day until the next one comes out, I promise.
Yes, but we'll be back next week. Jake and Jacob should be back as usual for the Gold Zone Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, follow the social media and have a good week.